Hi, everyone. This is Rohit from Lifestyle Mastery, and today I'm excited to have Prateek Behera, who's a graduate of Birla Institute of Technology and Sciences, Pilani, who's launched a $1 million fund, which is called Grad Capital, which plans to invest in startups funded by college students. Grad Capital plans to invest in 100 startups in the next 3 years and is now open the application process for its first cohort of startups. Welcome to the show, Prateek.
Hey, yeah, hi Rohit. Nice to have you here. Nice to so nice to have. Can we just restart? I'm sorry, I just got a little bit caught up with you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's really exciting that you started your VC firm, which is called Grad Capital. What got you excited about startups in the VC world?
Um, yeah, that's a very interesting question, but I mean, I wouldn't call it startup or VC world. I would rather call it finding something interesting to do. And although we did start a VC fund per se for students, but we do run it very much like a startups. Like our customers are startups, and we are very customer centric. That means we are very startup centric. Whatever is in the best interest of the startup, and
Yeah.
not in the best interest of our fund, right? Always it doesn't like we think we are betting long term on startups, and uh, if we make them a center, that's going to pay off at some point. So what got me interested, we have to go back in time a little bit. And I was post college, post 2019, I joined a boutique firm in Bangalore, a financial services firm. And 3 months into it, I started fidgeting around with a bunch of ideas here and there. And although none of them worked, I mean, that's how it happens with everyone, I guess. Then one fine day in May, I got a call from Abhishek Sethi. I know him from college, like since 2014, I would say. And he's a great friend, and he was into physics for a long time, into very high technical stuff. I would say he went to Berkeley to do some RA shift, came back to India, joined, and like I'm on the wall. Then in the second year of college, he pings me. He's like, "There's something I have in mind, would like to discuss with you." And I pick up the phone, and then he goes about say students. Like he just mentions why don't we have something for students? It was not even sort of a fund idea when he spoke to me. It sort of morphed into one because he mentioned about dorm room fund, he mentioned about campus capital in the UK, and we are like, why is there no such thing in India? Is it fundamentally different? Is it something uh, like other investors here look for like you know uh, more mature people to start up? But we couldn't really find the answer. Like we didn't have an answer to that. So the natural next step was to figure it out. I mean, to figure out if India needs a student fund
Right.
and if India needs more student startups.
Yeah.
I think that was the start of it. After which we did a bunch of pilot. I think we can talk about it as we go.
Yeah. Interesting. And you work with a UC inclusive credit. Well, after you went out of college, was it specific on debt capital, and how did the company look at selecting startups for the green
Right,
capital?
right. So yeah, UC Inclusive Credit was like the debt investment arm of Unitas Capital, and Unitas Capital uh, uh, is a very well-known impact investment bank. What I mean by impact here is the companies that they support, the company that they raise capital for or invest in, are fall in one of the 6 impact categories that they have outlined, like microfinance, renewable energy, uh, health, and agriculture, and so on, like education. So at UC Inclusive, we did a lot of debt investment, like in revenue generating startups. So most of them were in the financial services sector, like in microfinance and in EV finance, and a lot of these financing companies for the tier 3, tier 4 of the country. And along with that, I also happen to do a bunch of EV companies as well. So UC Inclusive was more from a impact side, where we did debt and there was no equity financing involved. But and all the startups that were sort of late stage, because you really need to be revenue generating to be able to service a debt, right?
Interesting.
So yeah, that's what we did there.
Interesting. And You said something very interesting about student startups and whether there should be a fund for that. And I had the privilege to work for Ritesh Agarwal, who's the founder of OA Rooms. Who dropped out of college, went to Thiel Fellow.
Mhm. Yeah.
What do you look for students as entrepreneurs, and there's an age-old debate, especially when it comes to tech startups, that
Yeah.
should someone have experience, real life experience to build a startup, or something like Ritesh, or some of the Thiel fellows who dropped out and who really hit big. What are your thoughts, since you've been so involved with students?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting thought, and I think I'm on the same page as you. Like, I mean, I would like I'm astounded as well, but in the last 2 weeks, I've met like 5 to 6 dropouts. I tweeted about it also as well. It's
Yeah.
like we are seeing a change in students, and like that's pretty exciting. Uh, this wasn't there a couple of years ago. For example, this is very common in the West. Gap years, gap semesters, people do take, and people start businesses or do something else. Like that is very common. In India, it's looked down upon. It used to be,
Yeah.
at least.
Correct.
But we are seeing a change in phenomena. I mean, recently speaking, if I talk about a few startups from India, from my college itself, right? There's a startup called Pixel, which is literally launching they're launching satellites to the space, right? A constellation of
Wow.
satellites, and they
Yeah.
have raised a lot of money in the last couple of years. But the defining part of this is, when they were in college, they were also part of this club called Team Anand, which used to which was a satellite club. Like they used to do all things satellite, and it's so interesting to see that a startup coming out of a club. And this is not a new phenomena. Another startup which is quite famous globally as well, it's called Gray Orange Robotics. I think
Yes.
it's close to $1 billion company now. That
Correct.
was also started out of bits. And
Wow.
funnily enough, there's a club called Team Acute, which is a robotics club which was started by the founder of Gray Orange
Oh,
in
interesting.
bits. And so we are seeing a lot of to club to startups happening out of colleges. Even you mentioned Harshal Mathur, like before, right? So Harshal
Correct.
Mathur as well, like Razorpay is from IIT Kanpur. There were a bunch of l- college kids who were completely into coding, and they were essentially sort of the starting team per se of Razorpay. And uh, IIT Madras has this very interesting phenomenon. So, I mean, I completely agree with you that we do still think that they're outliers. We do still think that student founders are also outliers, and we are seeing that change happen right now. Dropouts, like people taking gap years, gap semesters, these are all convincing uh, points for us, right? When
Right.
a student starts up. So, yeah, like you mentioned, like I would love to see in like while the time we exist, uh like more and more dropouts coming up and starting up, and
Yeah.
that's something that is like a good sign, I would say.
Right. No, absolutely. I think the younger you are, you can take more risk, and you also do have the energy, because I think startups are not easy. But it's a very interesting phenomenon, what you mentioned, that there are a lot of students are dropping out, who want to explore different things, because India, if you look at predominantly, we've been very, parents. That's how the culture is. We would like to spend more money into a student's, into the child's education, and they've been risk averse, where parents would not encourage children to
Yeah.
start up and all. But where do you think the phenomenon is building up? Is it because we've, in the last couple of years, especially in the last 10 or 20 years, uh, Indian GDP has really grown, or do you think Indians have become more ambitious and hungry? Why do you think, when parents are okay with this, their
Right.
children dropping out?
I think I have a very short answer to this. It's the flywheel effect of more and more startups started by college alumni.
Interesting.
So this has been happening across the country, and uh, like a lot of colleges that are producing more startups right now. And if you ask them, their role model is going to be an alum startup.
Oh,
So I
interesting.
think this is the only reason GDP and all maybe contributing to more capital in the market, but they're not really contributing to people starting up. This is what's contributing to people starting up.
Yeah, no, I think this is very interesting point that you pointed out, that alums. Uh, people are looking at role models like Herschel and some of the other founders that you mentioned. But if you look at some of the elite universities, especially the Harvard and Stanfords, the course fees are becoming really expensive. Uh, do you think there can be an unbundling of education where students don't have to, spend 4 years learning about a subject which they may not be able to use it later on? Like for example, I think before the call we were discussing about how in sales roles people don't know how to use HubSpot or Salesforce. They've
Yeah.
learned on the job. If you look at Y Combinator, it is said that it has revolutionized education, especially startup education, because you meet some of the smartest people in four months, and then you go out and raise money from some of the richest of people, and also Lambda School for that matter.
Yeah.
But do you think there's going to be unbundling of education where students don't have to study for 4 years, and there could be a lot of shorter courses? What are your thoughts on
Um, so like Abhishek and I keep mentioning this, that our biggest competitors are not other VCs, they're probably exams, right? They're
that?
probably college exams. And we see the best founders that we talk to probably have to take sort of a pseudo leave from college. Their GPAs are low, they can't focus a lot on studies, and they have focused completely on the product. So we do see that pattern, which raises the question, then why education, right? Uh, at the same time, I think there has to be a hybrid solution to this. I mean, uh, like changing the education model completely to support, say, uh, sales-led tech startups. I don't know if it's the right way to go, because uh, like a portion of our startups also are deep tech, right? And deep tech startups do use a lot of college resources. What's currently like there in the college, right? IIT Madras has a beautiful like incubation center, and a lot of deep tech startups come from there. IISc in Bangalore, Indian Institute of Sciences, also produces a lot of deep tech startups. So I wouldn't say that the education in certain like in certain aspect is sort of uh, completely not relevant, but uh, I mean, I do agree. Like people don't know HubSpot, people don't know Salesforce, people don't know a lot of these tools that they pick up when they start up, right? So what I think could be the, like, I mean, like you mentioned, right? There are a bunch of other private institutions coming in. There's STOA school in India, which was started by another Bits alum, which is like a mini MBA sort of. Like you don't have to spend lakhs and like millions of dollars into like colleges, but you can do it in a short span of time, the things that you need. So there are like private institutions coming up to try and solve this. And I do think the traditional old colleges, the IITs, the BITS, and the IIMs and all, which are very resistant to change, will soon have to change, because they'll see a sudden uh, like underperformance by the students in their classes. And although they can claim it to be that the students are from our colleges and they're doing well, but the time is better spent somewhere else. And as I'm saying, the private institutions in India as well are raising the fees year on year. I mean,
Yeah.
if I talk about myself, from 2014 to 2018, our fees more than doubled in the last year from the day I joined, right? And that's phenomenal amount of money, right? And if it's gonna keep doubling, you're gonna see, I mean, it's gonna be unaffordable at some point. And the moment it's unaffordable, people are not going to start up,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you have a loan to pay, right?
Correct. Correct.
So yeah, I mean, I do agree there's gonna have to be a change in the way people are educated. I'm not sure how that's gonna work, but uh, like uh, we have to rethink education from ground up. Like it's not gonna be the same. It's not like exams can't be the way people are not
Yeah.
getting GPAs, right?
Correct.
So
Correct.
yeah, I think that's the thing that I think about it.
Interesting. And a follow up on students as entrepreneurs. What do you look for a student who doesn't have world life experience, who might have just ideas with them? Is there any specific skill set that you look for when you interview them? Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah, that's a very valid question. That's the only question we ask ourselves every day as well when we talk to founders. So,
Right.
uh, so I first thing I would say is 95 to 99% of the people like we talk to, like the founders we talk to, do not have world life experience, and I think that gives rise to a new kind of creativity. It doesn't it doesn't show you four spectrum of things that you can, like, this is a safe thing to do, this is a risky thing to do. Safe and risky doesn't exist in their mind. What exists in their mind is pure problem solution approach. So when we look at founders, I would say the best founders, you can straight off the bat, you can notice the grit in them. You can see that even if it's just an idea, like a very budding, say a very normal social media idea, they would pick it up, they would build an app quickly or build a very simple MVP version of a product in a week or two and give it to users and start experimenting. And the moment you start experimenting, you know at some point you will hit the right spot, or even like suppose you don't, like still it's fine because you learned a lot of things by doing experimentation again and again. So the best founders end up doing a lot of experimentation without raising any money.
Yeah.
uh, they figure out much more about the market than any news channel can tell you, any news website can tell you. So that's something that we also look for, like, are people putting their own effort into it, and how creative are they with efforts. Like, for example, I'll give you uh, like a small snippet of what happened in one of the calls.
Hmm.
Some person was building like a platform where it's sort of impossible for him to contact a user, right?
Right.
It could be possible, right? Say for example, Reddit, it's not really like anonymous users, right? There's no login, it's a free to open app.
Correct.
They found out a very unique way to talk to users. Like, I mean, in the best interest, I won't say what they told me, but uh, it it was super unique to know that they were like eager and hungry to know what the users liked and they didn't like. And that's something that's brilliant, right? I mean, you are hustling, you're figuring out ways to do things that you can't in the current set of things. And grit, hustle, I would say these two are probably one of the two biggest things that can solve for like our filtering out process, I suppose. Yeah.
Right. Well, I think
Skills
this
come
is
secondary. Like, just to take your point out of that, like skills do come like secondary. Although a lot of people we meet are highly skilled, but skills are sort of secondary. Like, you can pick them up the moment you know I need this skill. You can spend some time and build up on the skill. And the smartest founders will build it on their own.
right.
So that's my chance on it.
Right. Yeah. No, I think you rightly pointed out that execution and just hustling out and building,
Yeah.
keep building is important. And I wanted to understand what companies are you seeing which are coming out of these uh, 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 from the universities in India? Are
Right.
they focusing on are you focusing on a particular thesis? Like you want to focus on only particular sector, or are you stage sector agnostic?
Right. So one thing, let's talk about stage first, right? Because it's a
Right.
very simple thing and very straightforward thing. We want to come in very early, like the earliest, such that the valuation that we also keep the startups in is not hefty for them. And we ideally, we are the first check that the startup ever sees, and we are the ones who get these startups into the limelight. I mean, they uh, so that's the stage we enter. After us, they can raise any amount of follow on, and that's the thing that we drive through our cohort process and our demo day and stuff like that. Now, coming back to the kind of sectors that we see, right? I mean, one more question that you asked was, what sectors do we focus on? And I mean, to that, my answer is our thesis is students.
Okay.
Students, full stop. Like, anything that's like, we don't want to define the future because we are not the ones building these products. We want these entrepreneurs to define the future, and they choose the sectors. We don't want to call prediction on what the next thing gonna be. So our thesis is students, but at the same time, I can tell you what we see, right? For example, if you in India at least, I mean, if you go slightly late stage, like slightly mature founders, you would see a lot of SaaS businesses in that like space, right? People having spent some time in corporates and big tech companies, they find out a problem and build a product out of it. But in the student space, like they have no worldview experience. You see a lot more uh, creative stuff, a lot like some things are really risky as well, but they are creative, they are innovative. So we do see uh, a major chunk of startups are in the deep tech sector and consumer internet. If I want to bifurcate consumer internet further, we see a lot of startups around social, like social slash community, be it commerce, be it stockbroking, be it uh, learning. Uh, Everything we see sort of is having a social element to it. And I think there's a new phenomena that's picking up among students. Uh, yeah, I think these are the sectors that we broadly see.
Right. No, I think important point you mentioned about is social-driven communities. Is it with Generation Alpha or Generation Z that we call them? Are they focusing on social-driven projects which could also be monetized? Or are they looking as a way to start off their entrepreneurial journey and then build up an experience around that?
Right. I mean, there are 2 points that you mentioned. I'll address both the points. One thing uh, is it the way they start the journey? Well, I'm not sure of the answer as to why people are starting a lot of social businesses, but after talking to a bunch of folks about it, like why they're starting it, it seems like it's very simple to start off. Like build an app, get some users, talk to the
Right.
users, figure out problems, switch, change, and see what works and see what creates that user stickiness. Uh, so obviously, if it's getting started like this, there's a rate of high drop off as well, right? So there would be. I mean, we do see some people dropping the idea after a while as well. And so we try and focus on a lot of people, a lot of founders who have really seen it through. Now, the second thing that you mentioned is monetization part, right? I mean, everyone who's starting up, everyone who's in some kind of a business, like any kind of an entrepreneurial journey, I think they know that they're here for the business. And the best founders we speak to are aware that the business is what drives attention in the long run for them, right? And yes, we do see a lot of monetization strategies around communities as well, but uh, uh, building a community and then monetizing it is sort of a trend that we are seeing, and which makes sense, right? You build a community of 100,000, 200,000 folks, and uh, you get in a bunch of instructors into that community, and they start communicating, they start learning, and you see a pattern, and then that pattern you make your business model, and then you start charging, and then you start a commission. And uh, and the thing is, I told you a very basic sort of a way that there is, but people are customizing this to some whole new level and building very creative products out of it around community, right? Community selling as well. I mean, the way you sell to tier one, tier two cities is going to be different the way you sell to tier three, tier four cities.
Right.
And we are seeing a lot of innovation there. We are seeing a social element to every aspect of commerce as well. So I think it's interesting to see where this angle goes. I mean, it's pretty new. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. No, I think it's interesting, and um, uh, I wanted to understand how do you look at portfolio construction? I believe this is going to be like a 3 to 5 year fund. There could be more follow-on rounds, but how do you define portfolio construction?
So I mean, our process is pretty sort of straightforward. We take in rolling applications, right? It's not like says that thousands of people apply. We select 10, like 10 best. We do a cohort. It's not like a school model. People apply every month, every day, whenever they like. We try to execute it as fast as possible. We do it within like 20 days, and uh, so the moment we find a product great, the moment we see that they have the potential, the moment we see they have a long-term vision, we put in our money. We don't think twice about it. And we are coming in too early. There's a lot of scope for people to develop. Like there's a lot of scope for these founders to build upon as well. So we think the moment we see great amount of positive signal coming from a startup, we invest. So at the end of it, we see 10 solid companies or 12 solid companies in each of our cohort. There's no fixed number, like 10 is something that we have put an like estimate at, but it could be very well like 20, it could be 30, and we have the liquidity to even support that, right? So, so, so that's how we are looking at it. I mean, early stage, all you can do is bet on the founder, and all you should do is bet on the founder. If you look at a lot of data, then it would probably give some amount of wrong signals as well sometimes, I would say. And if the founders are strong enough, they would figure out a way. That's the start.
Got it. Interesting. And how do you look at putting the right amount of capital considering into one company? Do you think investing more than say $25,000 or $100,000, focusing on just one company is the right way to go about it, or is it possible to take it to 20% of the equity in one company?
I'm sorry. I mean, are you asking if we differ in check size from company to company?
Correct. And do you also look at taking the equity size to say a specific number like a 20% equity in one company?
I mean, it's great question, but at this stage, what we have found out is that signal can cause a lot of consequences, can have a lot of consequences. If we do a wrong signaling or right signaling, it could have consequences. So for us at this stage, we write a standard check of $25,000 for a standard equity. And the equity is also like in single digit number and like a lower single digit number. And so it's standard across all our startups. All the cap tables are like identical. There is no signaling effect from us because we truly think all the startups can kill it in the future. Right. So from equity perspective, from the amount of money perspective in the first round, this is what we do. It's a completely standard. There's no like standard term sheets as well. Very quick execution. The moment our IC decides that we're going to invest, within a week, we wire the money.
Got it. And last year has been an inflection point because of COVID. There've been a lot of SPACs, which are especially led by Jamaat from Social Capital. But do you think there's going to be a lot of IPOs and exits for founders and teams, especially when it comes to secondary sales going forward, considering that India has not had that many IPOs and liquidity events?
So I would answer this question in a slightly different way, where primarily because I frankly don't have a lot of idea about late stage investments and how they mature to be IPOs and why they become IPOs. I'm 24 years old, so I don't really have experience in that field as well. But I mean, I can say what people are saying. I mean, a while back, like today or yesterday, I saw some partner from a major VC fund posting like in the next 6 months or 1 year, we're going to see 6 to 8 VC-backed startups going IPO in India. And I think that's a great number because India has about 40 unicorns or so, 30, 40 unicorns, and out of which 6 to 7 companies are going IPO in like the next 6-7 months, and that's going to be great. But I'll sort of go back a bit and talk about our stage, right? And we do see acquisition as a probable exit for us in the future. And we do see a lot of strategic investors taking sort of like interest in what we are doing, because like these students are very, very smart, and these students are building companies straight out of college. In fact, I would go like before that. I've talked to 12 standard kids as well, and even they are building great products. So acquiring them would be of great asset. And we also see a lot of alignment in sort of like creativity coming out of young founders versus mature businesses having a set supply chain, I would say. So a merger of that could make a lot of sense. So I think late stage, I won't be able to comment much, but early stage, this is what I think.
Got it. And I quickly want to do the top three. What's your favorite business book?
I would slightly differ from a book. I would choose three newsletters that I read very often. One is Lenny Rachitsky's, one is Benedict Evans, and the third one is like Strategy. So I think if you read these three, you would know a lot about what's happening around the world.
No, I think all the three newsletters are great. I'm a subscriber to Lenny's newsletter. He's a great product thought leader.
Yeah.
And if you could go back in time when you started building Grad Capital, what is the one thing you would have focused on or done anything differently?
Right. Right now we're building it for a year or more, slightly 13, 14 months or so. And we went full time last December. We went all in. We started raising money and stuff. And one thing I could probably change is prepone that. I think I took a little bit more time to develop that conviction. I took my own time, I won't lie. And it may have been required, but if I could reverse that, I would build that conviction like instantly, and Grad Capital would have been launched in January this year.
Correct. And what's your favorite online tools? Example, Gmail, Slack, Zoom.
Hands down, Notion.
Notion, got it. We'll put that in the show notes. Prateek, what is the best way people can reach out to you and know more about Grad Capital?
Oh, definitely. People can reach out to me on LinkedIn. My name is Prateek Behera. Handle is Prateek Behera96. My Twitter handle is also Prateek Behera96. And I'm available at behera@gradcapital.in. Like any of the social media channels, direct email, or even ping on the website, the mail directly goes to my box. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll put that in the show notes. Prateek, thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us. I really enjoyed my conversation with you.
Thanks a lot, Rohit. This was my pleasure.